Hello, in this session we look at the principal steps to naming hydrocarbons, and this is described as the nomenclature. Welcome. To be able to name comprehensively what are known as organic compounds or hydrocarbons, we follow a sequence of identifying the number of carbons. Namely, the number of carbons determines the prefix which gives us the beginning of the name for an organic compound. 2, there is a suffix, and the suffix represents the family or the homologous series in which that species is found. So by combining a prefix, which is derived either from Latin name or from polynomial names, then we add the suffix to attach a name which makes the compound name. In this case, the prefixes meth, eth, and prop, as well as but, are Latin prefixes. These Latin prefixes represents the count of 1, 2, 3, and 4. So meth means 1, eth means 2, prop means 3, and but means 4. Therefore, when a hydrocarbon has 1 carbon, we prefix it meth. When it has 2, it is eth. When it is 3, it's prop. When it has 4 carbons, the prefix is but. Beyond this, we have the polynomial prefixes. Just like we would say a pentagon, which is a polygon species that has 5 sides. So we borrow from the polynomial nomenclature by taking pent for 5, hex for 6, hept for 7, oct for 8, non for 8, and dec for 10. With each respective prefix, we will assign suffixes which depend on the family in which the species is found. If in case the organic species is an alkene, then the suffix "n" will be added to the prefix, such as meth and "n" will form methane. Number 2, if the species is an alkene, which means it has a double bond, remember alkenes have single bonds, then we will name it, for example, using the prefix "eth" and "in", so it will be ethene, meaning a double bonded hydrocarbon with 2 carbons. If we will still name it from the same prefix and the suffix "ine", which means it has a triple bond, then we would have ethyne. If a species has 3 carbons and it's an alkyne, which is the formula CnH2n+1, then we will name it as propyl. If, however, the species has 3 carbons and the suffix is "ol", which means it's an alkano, which has ROH as a reference formula, then it will be propanol. If the species has 4 carbons and begins with but and ends in oic, which means it's an alkanoic acid, then we will name it butanoic acid. And as we do that, we will remember that the formula for alkanoics is R, which is an alkyl with the carboxylic group, which is COOH. Next, ending in al, we will have something like butanal. And butanal is an aldehyde, which is of the formula RC with the double bond in the outermost carbon. If the suffix is on, then it's a ketone of the formula RC with a secondary carbon attached to polar alkyl molecules. So principally, to be able to name hydrocarbons, we must assign the Latin prefix or the polynomial prefix to a suitable suffix in order to form the compound name, depending on the family of that identified organic species. Now, what happens when the number of carbons goes beyond 10? Let us look at that briefly. Whenever the number of carbons goes beyond 10, let's say we have C11, 12, 13 up to 20, So we have C11 to C20. Our prefix is going to be renewed, and we are going to use grammatical prefixes like unit, which is taken as uni, di for 2, and tri for 3. Now, to these prefixes, which are renewed prefixes after the first 10, we are going to add the previous name for the parent molecule, which was a dec. Now, this dec may be dec-in, dec-in, dec-ein, or decanil, decanol, decanoic, decanal, or decanon. And therefore, we will proceed and say if there are 4 carbons after the first 10, then we will have tetra, good. Then we will have deca, then we will have hexa, then we will have hepta, then we will have octa, then we will have nona, then we will have deca. So as we proceed in this nomenclature, we will name number 11 to number 20 as follows. I want to use the example of alkanes after the first 10. You will say unidecane for number 11. Number 12 will say didecane. Number 13 will say tridecane. Number 14 will say tetradecane. 15 pentadecane. 16 hexadecane. 17 heptadecane. 18 octadecane. 19 nonadecane, and 20 decadecane. What then will happen after the first 20? Let's say now we look at values of 10. So we have 10, then we have 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100. We have seen that the first 10 will end in dec. The first 20, now we will improvise and use do instead of die, tro instead of try, tetro instead of tetra for 40, pento instead of penta for 50, hexo instead of hexa for 60. We will use hepto instead of hepta for 70. We will use octo for 80, nono for 90 instead of nona for 19, and we will use deco for 100. And therefore, if we are still following the sequence using alkanes from number 1 to 100, the 10th alkane is decane, 20th will be decane, 30 will be trodecane, 40 will be tetradecane, 50 pentadecane, 60 hexadecane, 70 heptadecane, 80 octadecane, 90 nonadecane, and 100 decadecane. If, however, you are to proceed from number 20 to 21, then you will simply say do, uni, decane. Now, assuming that we already are using 20 as dodecane, then you will just say uni dodecane. And then you will say di dodecane. Try dodecane. For 30s, we will say 31 is trodecane. So 31 will be uni trodecane. 32 will be di trodecane. 33 will be tri trodecane. What about 40? 40 is trodecane. So 41 will be uni tetrodecane. 42 will be di-tetrodecane. 43 would be tri-tetrodecane. Now, what about 90? 90 we have said is nonodecane. So 91 will be uninonodecane. 92 will be dinonodecane. 93 will be trinonodecane. 94 will be tetranonodecane. 95 will be pentanonodecane. And the sequence will continue to 99, which will be nonanodecane. Nonanodecane. And in that case, the 100th will be decadodecane. Good. And that is it. So basically, the nomenclature of hydrocarbons follow the sequence of naming in respect to the number of carbons, where we either use Latin names for the first four, like meth, eth, prop, and but, or we use the polynomial nomenclature like pent, hex, hept, oct, non, and dec. Beyond the 10th, we use grammatical nomenclature like uni for 1, di for 2, tri for 3, tetra for 4, and the sequence continues. And then when we are using the tens, after the first 10, we can translate the grammatical nomenclature from di for 2 to do for 20, and then draw instead of try for 30. Then we may have tetro for 40 instead of tetra for 14. We may have pento for 50 instead of penta for 15. And the sequence continues up to what we are calling decadecane. Thank you.